All right, my friends. Whew! I got the classic Japanese fancy Hawaiian t-shirt on. A lot of you don't realize that this is actually a fancy shirt that my wife made me buy at Search and Destroy in St. Mark's. It is day 90? Something like that. And it's going to be another unorthodox one. Not a short, maybe not a short one. It depends on how long I can go. It's a day where I've decided to chill. This coming week is going to be the beginning of like a time where I really need to get my shit together before my wife gets home. I have like 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to like be less fucking fat, work hard on myself. I've got my job figured out. My cat isn't dead. I did the laundry. I'm ready. It's time. It's time for me to figure out the things I usually do. A lot of writing to do tonight, which I will do. And that's what, I didn't drink for like 6 months. And that's not for any particular reason other than the fact that I find it difficult to do difficult things when you drink. Drinking makes drinking better. Everything else it kind of makes worse. And this is something that could be articulated perhaps in a better fashion, but in the sense that for me, I didn't start drinking until my mid-20s. When I was a kid, my friends all drank and did very hard drugs, and I didn't because I grew up in a home with extreme alcoholism. So I avoided drinking, and I was also super fat. And my friends, I was fortunate enough to be a cooler, popular kid, and they kind of let me get away with being one of the kids that didn't drink. So I was nuts and violent and crazy without the drug aspect of it. So make of that what you will. Um, where was I going with that? Where was I going with that? I've never been a big alcohol person except for when I traveled and I left the country and I drank quite often, and it just became a social lubricant. I never had a very particularly unique relationship with alcohol. And then I didn't drink for 6 months this past year because it was helping me focus on my goals. It's just drinking's distracting. It's very difficult to lose weight if you're drinking alcohol periodically. For me, it is too it takes away from everything else. That's what the real issue is. And it's not as fun as you think it is, right? Especially I'm married. I'm not trying to go out and like talk to some woman. It's not like when I was in Korea and I was drinking. Yeah, I was like going to clubs and hanging out with girls, and like there was a lot like there's a lot of fun involved there. But it's like, what am I gonna do? Like drink? I'm drinking alone. I'm drinking and I'm reading. I'm drinking and I'm reading like Nabokov, like which makes you like a main. You know what happens to writers that drink alone in their room and write all day? They blow their heads off with a shotgun on their boat. That's what's gonna happen to me. So I can't do that. So I got to be very cautious. Um, but I started drinking about a week ago, just for work things, just to kind of get into the socialization there without feeling like an odd man out. And I didn't have to. Keep that in mind. But I did it to do it. Um, I am lucky in the sense that I've never had alcohol as something that I've used as like I've never used it to I've never relied upon it for anything. I'm socially eloquent and outgoing and dominating of any room I enter on a social level, whether or not I'm drinking. Insanely arrogant thing to say, but it's completely true. Alcohol has no effect on me in that sense, one way or the other. The only thing alcohol really does for me is make me slightly looser and laugh a little bit harder, and then in the end, it makes me very insane, and I have to stop doing it, or I destroy my marriage and ruin everyone's lives. So it is something I do have to be careful with, but that's just because of me and the type of person that I am. But I decided today that I wanted to take a day, hang out. I have a full week ahead of me. I have to stop drinking again just because it's not conducive of a 12 or 1600 calorie diet. Drinking like once every in a while, it's just really not conducive. So it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I probably got to put this on the back burner again for another couple months. It also feels better to drink when you have your shit together. It doesn't feel good to drink when you don't have your shit together. The more your shit is together, the better it feels to indulge, whether it's drinking or playing a game or anything really, anything that has no immediate benefit to like the actual betterment of your life. I can drink and read and I can drink and write, which is something that is a problem because it is kind of fun to drink and write. It is kind of fun to drink and read. But I will become a drunken maniac writer. That I will become. I'm an Irish guy. I come from a family of alcoholics. being Irish notwithstanding, not even relevant because a lot of the alcoholism's on the other side of the family that isn't Irish at all. I'm only half Irish, so it's like it's a sketchy road for me to walk down. You know what I'm saying? And I never needed it until my mid-20s. I never fucked with it, so it's not like something I need on a social level. All that being said, I've been making espresso martinis. I have to wake up at 9 a.m. tomorrow, which is like early for me because I normally go to bed at like 7 a.m. So I've been making espresso martinis. I'm trying to relax. I don't know if an espresso martini actually makes you relaxed, but I've been having fun. I don't do cocaine. I'm like one of 6 guys in Manhattan that doesn't do cocaine. So I have to always be cautious. But espresso martinis are my way around it. I um I have no big plans though. I'm just trying to reinvigorate the channel, reinvigorate myself. I feel kind of like I just crawled out of a cave when it comes to my cat and my life and the scenarios around me. I feel like things that I thought were all going to be together a few weeks ago are finally coming together now. I really fucked myself up with the cat. I know it's kind of silly, but my form of empathy is not logically driven. I am an instinctual person. I go by the heart. When I write, when I act, when I do things, I am not someone that intellectualizes their behavior. I think that when you intellectualize instinct, I think that you are undermining the human experience. So when I think a creature of extreme innocence, like an animal, is being hurt, I'm driven into a manic rage and misery that I can't explain. And I don't care to explain it. And any form of defining or expressing my philosophical or theological or intellectual or emotional rationalizations I filter into my creative work because I don't want to explain these things because I don't understand them myself, which is the beauty of being a writer. I don't need to explain myself. The work can explain for me. But I have a lot to catch up on there. Needless to say, I have not been writing to the extent that I should be or reading to the extent that I should be, and it is a thing that you need to constantly be doing. Um, that's all I've got. I thought about what are we at right now? Hey, 7 minutes ain't bad. Um, as far as alcohol and everything goes, it's like, look, man, you know why you're doing what you're doing. You do know. I believe you know. If you are drinking and you are doing it because you're bored and you don't know what else to do with your time as soon as 6 p.m. comes around, you know what you're doing is pointless. If you are drinking for the sake of social lubricant, you're trying to meet someone, that is a very different thing. It's the frustrating reality is that generally, generalizations do not work for people. That even might be a Murakami quote or something like that. But the point being, you have to trust yourself to be aware of why you're doing something. And I think that everyone that lies to themselves is conscious that they're lying to themselves when they're doing it. I have never abused alcohol for the sake of hiding away or repressing an emotion. I'm an emotive person. I like to feel my emotions because I rarely they come up like it's like volcanic eruptions for me. It's very uncommon, but I need them. Um, so if you're drinking and it's disrupting your daily life or you don't know why you're doing it, then yeah, it's a fucking waste. And I can speak to myself and say, look, well, you're drinking right now. You probably shouldn't be drinking. You should be doing X or Y or Z. And all of that is true. But we'll see whether or not that constitutes something I should worry about if I continue to drink tomorrow, if I continue to drink on Monday, days where I actually have no room in my schedule or my life to consume alcohol. And needless to say, my wife gets home. She doesn't like when I'm drinking. I'm a fucking animal. I know I present I'm a very articulate and endearing person, but I'm a fucking brute. So alcohol is not like the best thing in the world for me. But right now it's a goddamn Saturday night, and I'm just trying to relax. Espresso martinis. You go, does that make you relax? Yeah, kind of. I don't really feel the effects of stimulants that much. I'm just too much of a big blue. I don't know. But I feel good. I feel good. And I've got a hell of a week ahead of me. And I just wanted to chill. And I had Kahlua and vodka, and I have an espresso machine. And I went, you know what? I can make a mean espresso martini right now. So I made like 15 of them or whatever. I don't know, six of them. It will be 15 in a couple hours. Um, but this week, all things continue, and we'll be able to see where it is I'm at. Monday, we'll be returning to lifting, returning to weighing ourselves. I am currently resisting the desire to quadruple on my behaviors, to cut calories from 1600 to 1200, to add more running. I do have the urge to speed things up, especially considering the past month has been such a weight on the process. And probably no progress has been made in the last 30 days, unless you talk about like unilateral progress that like is debatable. Um, it's hard for me to resist that urge right now. I do have that urge. I do have a strong urge to cut down more and speed things up, especially before my wife gets home. Like make her, surprise her a little. Lose even more weight. Not she cares and she doesn't care. My wife is probably about as vain as I am, and needless to say, and I feel like I don't know how important it is to say something. The way I present myself on camera here is obviously like as carelessly and ridiculously as possible. But like in my social life, I'm pretty vain and materialistic, and I generally don't allow myself to be so insecure and easily ugly. But it's one of those things that I kind of enjoy doing here because it makes me laugh. Basically, everything I do in my life is predicated upon whether or not it'll make me laugh in any given moment. Um, which is an appealing quality. You could ask my wife 9 years ago. It's a very appealing quality because it makes me seem like I'm sociopathically incapable of concern. But then on the other end, it's very infuriating because I have no. When you really don't care about a lot of things, it's actually very negative for your life. It's something you have to figure out in your own time. What can galvanize you to care about one thing over the other? I'm not even sure what I'm talking about anymore. This is why you don't have multiple espresso martinis and then start talking to the camera because I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about anymore. I'm looking at my numbers here, and granted, I make these videos now. I don't even check the views. I don't check anything like that. I respond to comments as soon as I can, generally like 24 hours later. And I've got it's so interesting the way YouTube works. So I've got like that video I made called Hibernation. Don't know what I'm talking about in the video. No memory. It has quadruple the views of every other video, and it's like why? And it's just it really is because YouTube decided to spit it at 4 or 5 times the speed. Um, Interesting. I have no comment on that. It's just it's an algorithm. It chooses to work or it chooses not to work. But it's just something I'm looking at right now on the off side of the screen. But anyway, I think on the whole, the consumption of alcohol will effectively undermine all of your goals and desires without question. When you're young and you're socializing, I think it may be very useful to you. It was never very useful to me because I was always very social without alcohol. The years where you're most formative, the most important years when you're a teenager, I didn't drink alcohol. And I was incredibly self-conscious and insecure and afraid. I was a fat, ugly kid. But I was also popular and wild and charismatic and funny. Mostly funny. I would say 90% funny was what I got through high school with. Um, but then I would write poems, and I won these contests in my school, and everyone kind of came to my back. I had a very lucky. My high school experience was very fortunate. I won't lie. I had a very lucky high school experience. But I got people would fuck with me, but I'm a violent, wild guy. I would always react. I was never afraid in that sense. I had an older brothers that helped me understand how to handle things like that. I think that an individual knows why they're drinking, and I think an individual knows when that alcohol is not benefiting them. Generally, if you are trying to do something that is very complex, like write and lift and sleep as well as you can and read incredibly complex texts and synthesize and create comparative analyses and combine and really create a great ferment origin cross species that ends up becoming the written word, you can't mix alcohol into the middle of it to become a part of your process. It's too difficult. What you're doing is too complex. I don't think the greatest physicists in the world are also tying one off. And that's not what writing is. It's not comparable, but you get what I'm saying. The writers that have established, alcohol as a part of their system were generally from the 19th century, and it was a part of creating a sense of mystique around the nature of creativity and writing specifically because writing is so difficult. I'm sure if you're a random person, you may be going, writing a novel, 600 pages, it all makes sense. It's very hard to understand how that can even be done. So I can use that mystical nature of writing against you to go, oh well, I'm an artist and I drink and I have these weird patterns. None of that is true. It's just hard work and doing things over and over again, and being drunk does not help. It's a very 19th century Americana comprehension of how art works. Whereas before, in the 16th, 17th, 18th century, art was a trade that was largely inhibited by the church, the state, wealthy aristocratic benefactors. Um, I'm just seeing my own face. I don't know what I'm saying. Um, yeah, that's pretty good. This is a mug you could really love. Have a good weekend. I will unfortunately have to stop drinking after tonight, but having a couple drinks after a long time feels pretty fun. Feels pretty good. I'm not gonna lie to you. Fortunately, it's just gonna be me, my cat, and probably my brother, and we're just gonna, punch holes in the wall and watch 6 movies and then sleep. So that's probably the best way to do it. Turn my phone off, maybe just God only knows what I'm going to say to who. But thank you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow, okay? Be safe, take care of yourself, and have a good weekend, yeah? Losing 80 pounds. It's happening, all right? Don't shut up.